Commissioner Tyrone Oliver, he asked me, or someone asked me, I won't say who, asked me if we had taken the break as a way to ice the kicker. I said, well, and my thought was, I know this is a very good kicker, so it's not going to matter. It's like Mac Bryan up here; he's going to put it right through the upright. So we're happy to have you. Thank you so much. And I know you've been on the job for just like months, so. I know you've had to delve into the budget, get your head around it, knowing with the appropriations coming up this January. So our initial meetings have been fantastic. We've really taken a good hard look at the budget, but obviously we always have concerns, and we want to make sure we're vetting everything properly. But we're thankful to have you here and your staff. So.
Real quick, we're going to go through that the 2020 budget recommendations, and yes, you're right. I've been on the job. I think just that 6 months now, so it kind of came in at a good opportunity to take a good deep dive into the budget and get a good look at the agency as a whole. When otherwise it probably would have taken me just a little bit longer to do that. So I think I kind of came at a good time, so to speak, to take a look at it. You all should have received a packet that we provided to you, along with our PowerPoint that's going to go along with your tracking sheets, and so we can just dive into the amended 2020 governance recommendation budget. To get to the 4%, we had to get to a 14 million. We reduced the budget by $14,666,679, and how we did that was statewide adjustments from the the self-insured insurance programs, and that was a $555,000 reduction, cost savings back into the budget. And I'll just go line by line for the different programs. For the community service program, and it was item 3111, it was $136,188. In the administration, item 2.1, $41,206. And our secure commitment, which is a long-term facilities, item 3.1, $161,863. And our secure detention, which is our short-term facilities, we have 19 of those. That's item 4.1, that's $215,828 in the statewide adjustments. Next, we came to we froze vacant positions that were vacant since November 1 of 2018. And in the different programs, that was a total of 342 positions for the agency statewide. And out of those 342, 232 were security positions and 110 were non-security positions. And in the community service program, we froze positions, 52 positions, which is 2.1 million. And that's item 1.2 under the community service program. In the administration, we froze 4 positions that were non-securities, 215,000. Secure commitment, we froze 187 positions. Out of that, 157 were security, 30 non-security. That's about 7.8 million. And in our YDCs, our secure detention, it's 99 positions, 75 security, 24 non-security, and that was 4.2 million in that program. Next item we reduced funds by reducing our travel, eliminating supplemental training conferences. That's what I spoke about in the last meeting, was our professional development conferences. We're trying to leverage more lunch and learns and utilize technology to leverage that. And what we found when I looked at it, we were doing these development conferences that were lasting about four days or so off-site, and so we kind of try to condense that to more lunch and learns, or condense that time so you can still get that relevant training that they need to maybe a day and a half or so. So we're not eliminating it completely, just kind of reducing and coming up with more innovative ways to provide training for our staff. In the community service program, which is line item, of course, 1.3, it saved $149,000. In that, in administration, $28,800, and our secure commitment, $172,000, and secure detention, $249,000. And just touch on that a little bit. We've already, of course, we already started that, and it's proven to be effective. And the staff are really liking it when they can do a little bit of lunch and learns and things on site as well. So that's really been working out well for us. Next area we reduced funds in, we eliminated landlines for employees who have cellular phones. That was a cost savings back into the budget of $88,469. In the community service program, it's cost savings of $22,000. In administration, $4,424. Secure commitment, $25,656. Secure detention, $36,272. Next, we reduced funds by the delayed opening in October 1 of our Career Technology and Agricultural Education Program. That was $96,000. That was $96 it was a delayed opening in that, so we just took those funds from the budget through that delayed opening. And that was, if you have any questions, that was kind of quick. I know I went through it just trying to save time for questions. And
no, Commissioner, that's good. You jumped right into the heart of what we're doing today, and I appreciate that. I didn't ask you to go back through these on the community service. I'm looking at the amended budget, and there you have a freezing of non-security vacant positions, and this is line item 31.1.2. How many of those are we freezing?
The total freezing positions are 52.
52?
Yes, sir.
How many positions that that are remaining vacant and that you will still be funding through the budget, this recommended budget?
All right. Do you have that, Steve? I have that in this one. Vacant after total vacancy right now on the community side is 159.
Okay, so 159, that leaves us with 107?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'm going to go through this with the same thing on the departmental administration side, line 31.2.2. The recommendation is to freeze vacant positions there. How many are going to be frozen there, and then how many will be vacant and funded but not frozen? And we can do it the same way. If you got the total, I can subtract it out.
Okay. On the admin side, we had, was it 31 vacant?
31 vacant that's going to be frozen in this recommendation?
No,
four.
I'm sorry. Four positions are frozen in that budget, yes.
And we have 31 remaining or 31 total?
31 total, 27 after.
Okay, thank you. So these are funded positions that we're going to keep open and funded. In 27. On the secured commitments, we're freezing security and non-security, so I need to break those out into secure positions versus non-secure.
Okay, so total is 187. 157 of those are security and 30 are non-security. And what we have vacant currently right now in that program is 478.
Okay, how long have those been vacant? The 478. I know that you've targeted the ones that since November of 2018. Is there a general range of how long these positions have been open of the 478 total?
We don't have. I can come back with you with those numbers. The ones that we froze, they were vacant since November 1 of 2018. We do know that no one hasn't been any turnover whatsoever in those positions. But we've steadily been filling other positions that were vacant. But out of that 152, there haven't been anybody in those positions.
Okay, so let me see if I've got this right then. About 200 and some odd are going to be still funded.
Correct.
Vacant funded positions under this proposed recommendation from the governor.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then the same thing on the secure detentions, the RYDCs, that we have a freezing of security and non-security positions, and I'm trying to understand that as well.
All right, and that was a total of 99 positions. 75 of that 99 was security, and 24 were non-security. and currently our vacancy rate in that program is 533 vacant positions.
And Commissioner Oliver, I know you haven't been around on this particular job that as long as we probably would like to see you doing this job and give me the history, but you know, what's the issue? Why are we not filling those positions?
I think we're actively recruiting, and I think, you know, due to the economy picking back up, I think it's not a DJJ problem, it's a statewide or nationwide problem as it relates to public safety positions, and I think that's part of the reason of why we can't really fill them due to the economy. So
low unemployment means fewer people in the workforce to pick up for these particular jobs. What about the salaries related to these jobs and either retaining people or bringing them in?
You know, I think the salary, I mean, it plays, you know, it plays a part in it, a small piece in it. But you know, in the 2021, with the recommendation, that $1,000 would definitely help out. But also, you know, we can create that environment as an agency to want to make people stay as a cultural change as we're shifting right now at DJJ. You know, the philosophy is, you know, the people know when they fill out the application what the salary range is, but it's our job to make sure that we create that environment to where they want to stay. But definitely, you know, pay, you know, will help out, and that $1,000 is going to help out those employees that we have.
Okay. All right. Questions? One from Chairman Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, welcome, and we appreciate the job that your staff is doing. Let me ask you, with the closing of Sumter, is that the only one that we're closing, Sumter?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many individuals had jobs there at Sumter?
Total funded positions were 190 positions funded. I think I think currently we're at, what, 122? 122 positions filled currently.
All right, and those individuals were offered other positions within DJJ?
Yeah, absolutely.
How many did not actually, did we fill there? How many actually did not take those positions?
We haven't got to that point yet. We met with the Sumter team on last Friday to discuss the proposed closure of Sumter, and we're in the process now of mapping out a plan. But as it stands right now, we have the positions within DJJ to absorb all the employees within DJJ, some within surrounding facilities within 30, 45 minutes of Sumter, as far out as about an hour and a half to our Eastman location. And so we're working with the employees now to ensure that they secure jobs, and there may be some that might not want to make that drive, but we haven't had any feedback as of yet.
And and you still have students there? I'm sorry? You still have some individuals, the students at the facility? Yes. Or have they all been farmed out?
No, we're still operating that facility as we've been. We're in the process now of coming up with a plan to start phasing out. Currently, as of last Friday, we had 59 kids there at that facility, at that 150-bed facility, and so and we're taking a look at when at their release dates. So we should have approximately about 10 or so released before the end of the fiscal year, and so that population is going to steadily decline, and then we'll put the youth in other YDCs across the state.
All right, thank you. And may I say, Mr. Chairman, that when I visited the Terrell County DJJ Center, I was very impressed with what's going on there, and the cleanliness of it, and the way it was handled. And I appreciate Zach going with me. There he is, and he's been a big help to me as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Commissioner, these are even more in the weeds kind of questions, but what's the current number, the current population of the youth at the RYDCs?
I can look at it. Our current population, we usually run around 800 and so youth. If you give me just a second, I'll give you the exact numbers as it is today.
Okay.
Currently, right now, we're at 897.
And is that, and that's the current number? Do you know what kind of the annual average is for those?
It's usually run around there.
Since-
Yeah, since I've been there and looking at it over the last year, we haven't reached the 900 mark. If we do, we come right back. That 897 is kind of high right now.
Okay. What about the YDCs?
YDC side, usually that runs about 350. Let me just check right here. 355 today, and that's typical.
And then, do you have a backlog of individuals trying to get beds in either of these facilities?
We do. We have a little bit of a backlog. We have out of that 897 number that I spoke about, and that's in the RYDC. Roughly maybe about 100 of those are awaiting placement into the long-term facility, and so your true numbers are probably right around 700. And we're just waiting for correct placement and making sure that the service is going to be provided. We're assessing the needs of the kids to make sure we place them in the correct facility.
So if you got 897, then and you got a backlog of about 100, then that means you've got about almost 800 that's trying to.
Correct.
That's currently
on short-term detention. Correct.
Okay. And then on the RYDCs, do we have a backlog there?
No, sir. Typically, that's our short-term detention. Where in the catchment areas, the local police departments will bring them there, and they usually either go to our long-term facility or back into the community or back home.
Okay. Other questions for the commissioner? In the Sumter facility, so you're still that's still in a transition mode right now. So
That's very much so, yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. We'll get to the full budget in the next hearing, and we'll go through those issues, and we'll get a little bit more into detail on that, on where you anticipate the youth from that facility to go. I think you had told me that there was about 50 some odd.
50 some, and we've identified it. We have 5 male YDCs throughout the state that they can go to, and we're still analyzing on where to be the best fit for all the youth based on where they're from and families and things of that nature.
Okay. All right, more questions. Representative Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, Chairman Ballinger regrets not being here. She had a conflict and wanted me to pass that along.
All right.
And then secondly, with respect to a lot of the savings that you're identifying and proposing are with respect to training, and I heard you in terms of the lunch and learns. I'm curious about how you're going to do that. Are you going to have folks coming in, or are you going to have organic programs made by people within the department, or a mix of both?
Probably a mix of both. Currently, what we've been doing right now has kind of been a mix of both. We have our own staff that are on site doing trainings within central office in the facilities. We do have capability of doing some video lunch and learn. We can put out a video that can be emailed or distributed to all the facilities and community offices within DJJ. So we just come up with innovative ways of using technology, using in-house staff, and outside sources to come in and facilitate those. And again, we're just eliminating or reducing it. So if there's a need for an outside off-site course that needs to be offered, instead of trying to stretch it out over 4 or 5 days, let's see if we can condense it a little bit and do a day and a half type training to make sure if it meets the needs of the organization.
Okay, thanks.
We had funded several positions last year that had been open. I guess they're open since July of 2018. Have those been filled in?
Which ones are you speaking of?
These were vacancies that we had looked at before. They were positions that again were vacant as of July 2018. You went back to November, right?
Yes, and then I think in some of these positions we went back to November, and I think in the 2021 budget we went to July.
You did. Okay.
Yes.
And about how many of those are cut in the July budget?
Total, to include the Sumter closure, it's 440. I know in the last meeting, I think we said 150. I misheard Steve when he whispered in my ear about 150 of those, or it was 250 actually of security. Okay. And that's, it's 400, the total number is 440 with the Sumter closure.
And 440 and then 250 was security?
250, yes. The 250 was, I think, the total number outside of, and I apologize, outside of the Sumter closures. I think the total number was 440, and with Sumter closure, that's what got it to there. So you just take Sumter out, and I think that was the 250 positions.
Okay. And then with the balance of those, that would leave us with, let's see, my math's gonna be bad, so it's 290 left over. Are those essential, sorry, 190, are those essential positions to the core of the operations for DJJ?
For which ones on the?
The non-secure.
Non-secure? It's a combination. I mean, I think, you know, I think when we look at it, since July we've been operating and haven't seen any kind of adverse effects on the operations without those positions. And so it's kind of hard to say that they were essential, being that we've been operating without any kind of adverse effects on them without them.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from members of the committee? Representative Green.
Just one. With the problems that we have with gangs in our prisons and corrections, are you experiencing that issue as well?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you know, I think there was a presentation the other week or earlier this week, about 60 to 70% of our population are gang affiliated before they even come to us. And that's part of the difficulty. We have a difficult population to deal with within DJJ, but our staff they do a phenomenal job of managing that population and managing it. And it's my goal in 2020 to get some programming in place to kind of deprogram some of these kids that we have in our care, to kind of get them out of the gang life. So when they go back into the community, we can have that connection with some kind of either jobs or trade or anything, something like that, to keep them busy. But we do have a high gang population within DJJ.
Okay, thank you.
And does that just, I mean, if you don't deprogram, if you don't break that affiliation in juvenile, in the DJJ programs, I mean, what's the likely outcome?
They'll be right back, or you know, they'll come back. If they don't come back to us, if they're old enough, they'll be in DOC. And so I think, you know, our job, as we're mandated to do, is try to rehabilitate the youth in our care, and that's I make the promise, that's what we're going to try to do.
How does that, and it's outside of your core mission, but I'm going to ask the question about how, whatever success you may have with the de-affiliation and de-association with gangs, whatever success you have in that regard, how permanent is it really going to be when those individuals go back home? Because they're going back home.
True.
They're going back to their, you know, to wherever home was at the time, and that's generally where the pressures begin.
And I think that's what's going to be very important for us to partner with our community partners, our corporations, our businesses, our community leaders, to provide some type of opportunity or some other alternative resources to the kids other than going back to that gang life. And you know, we do a good job at DJJ with providing some kind of technical and trade school functions. We just got to connect them with some type of employment or something to do when they get back into that community, so they're not hanging back around the same, getting in that same influence of circle of friends. As
an attorney and seeing folks my age and growing up, and then others that have come through my office, it's inevitable that the number one problem that I've seen with anyone coming out of prison or an RYDC is that they returning home we think it's going to be a good outcome, but we're not talking about the home that most Georgians may experience. Correct. We're talking about a home environment that led them to seek gang affiliation to begin with. Correct. And so I'm not, and we can talk a lot about gangs, we can talk a lot about, we're almost creating a straw man to break down, but we're not really addressing some of the real issues. And I'm very concerned. We talk about this with DOC about transitioning, transition housing. And I think you may have heard Chairman Green speak about that at great length earlier. and the success that that brings, I'm going to ask you to think with your team, with the fresh minds that you have. I do want you to work with the juvenile court system and look within your team of expertise to determine what should the state be doing to ensure that those that leave the RYDC, if they're willing to denounce the gang affiliations while they're in your care, that is maintained, and what support, what conditions, what environment do we need to be affirmatively trying to establish to make that transition back, so that those gang affiliations, those roots don't, bear another thorny fruit, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
So I think that needs to be the next step. Otherwise, whatever you do in the system, I'm just not. You have to prove to me over and over again that that's going to actually result in permanent de-affiliation.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I think it's a holistic approach, and I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to take a good look at is our reentry programs, and that's one of the things I'm going to be committed to. That's on the top priority of my list right now as we get through this budget cycle, is to go take a look at our reentry and see if what programs we can put in place and what resources we can provide not only to the child but to the family. And we've been talking to other state partners as it relates to that, to try to see if there's a partnership there that we can provide that support for those who have denounced or come out or want out of the gang life.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no other questions, we will turn over to public safety. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Department of Public Safety is section 39 in your track sheet. And Colonel McDonough is here from the Department of Public Safety. And we'll be talking about the amended budget, which should appear on page 21 of 22 of your track sheet. Yeah. This is the last one. Colonel, thank you for being here today. Thank you for making the presentation. I want to just let everyone know we're going to, it looks like we're back on schedule for the most part, so we'll hope to wrap up about 4:30 and be done. So if anybody has other obligations, you can make those. Colonel, thank you, and we'll let you turn over the presentation to you to go over the amended budget.
Yes, sir. Starting off with the first section in our budget, which is aviation, 39.1. In 1.2, reduce funds associated with the Albany and Augusta hangars due to the consolidation of facilities. Mr. Chairman and members, the first place that we started to look for cuts to save funds were in those things that we considered support functions of the agency. We have 6 operational hangars in the state, and so we thought it would be a good place to start to essentially go to a 4 corners type operation with 4 hangars and idle down 2 of them. The 2 hangars that we've chosen are Albany and Augusta. So what it does is it remains the other 4 in Perry, Reedsville, McCullum Field, and Athens. Those are kind of the 4 corners that they'll operate out of, but the hangars will still maintain them. They'll just be on idle such that if we have to go into them, such as a tornado issue in southwest Georgia, we can still use that facility. But we feel that through the reduction of that, as far as utilities and water and things associated with the building, we can realize the savings about $30,000. The reduced funds for 2 vacant positions, those are 2 mechanics positions that we essentially, by reducing the fleet, we can reduce the need for those additional mechanics. Right now we have a fleet of about 15 aircraft, 1 fixed wing and 4 helicopters. We are selling 3 helicopters, and then we are giving a public use one back to the federal government, as well as a Cessna 182. And with those reductions, we're going to purchase 1 aircraft to replace all of the other ones. So When you reduce the fleet, you're able to realize those savings. And then the reduction in operating expenses, if you're not maintaining more aircraft, then you have the ability to realize those savings. So the program net is right at $184,541. The next is Department of Administration, and I'd refer you down to 39.3.2, reduce operating expenses. We feel we can realize about $35,000 in savings there through some of the spending practices that we've instituted as far as our P-card expenditures, and making a goal to reduce those by 25%, as well as our purchase orders. And then the reductions for funds for one vacant position at $50,494. That's an accountant position, analyst position within our comptroller's office. So that would be a net program saving of $75,790 in the departmental administration. Field operations is essentially the uniform division. When you hear that, that's not just our troopers. Our SWAT team is under that. Our Special Reconstruction Collision team is under that. All of our dispatchers or radios operators are under that. All of the administrative assistants that we have in all our facilities throughout the state that help with the administrative work and are in the facilities, the posts, that's what incorporates that field division. But when you see that field offices, pretty much that's the State Patrol and all those folks that support it. So the reduction of operating expenses, you can see the $379,338. Essentially, that figure came up by looking at the last 3 quarters of the year and looking at our ROE expenses and taking a look at all of those things, the beans, the bullets, the gas, all that type of things that go into that, the things that we couldn't reduce, and then essentially taking 75% of that, which is the remainder of the 3 quarters, and then taking a 10% goal of that, and that's where those savings would be realized. The large bulk of it, Mr. Chairman, though, comes in the reduction in the freezing of vacant positions, and that's $4,730,069. And when you take a look at specifically field ops, right now the funded positions that we have empty are 105. As of about 9 o'clock this morning, that ended up being 135. And when we look at those positions and we break them down within the Field Operations Division, 52 of those are the Trooper Cadet positions for the 109th that starts a week from Sunday. 35 are dispatchers that work in all of our comm centers throughout the state. We have 5 secretary positions, 1 mechanic that supports field operations in our garage. When you think of us, you think of cars. We got to have mechanics to maintain them, and then 12 additional sworn positions that are supervisory positions, anywhere from corporal through lieutenant. And as I mentioned, the addition of 30. I think everybody's probably aware of the action that we had to take today as far as letting members of the 104th Trooper School go. And so there is an associated cost with them, even though there is a realized savings in their personal service costs. We do have annual leave payouts. We have FLSA comp, and then we have deferred holiday expenses associated with that class that'll be about $350,000. Mr. Chairman, I know that you wanted me to address that. Do you want to know any more about that issue?
Yeah, I don't think other members, but we've been in this room all afternoon.
Yes, sir.
So I think it'd be helpful to know why the reduction was made. And I do want to ask you about it relative to dipstick where they're trained. And I want to delve into that a little bit to the extent that you can.
Yes, sir. In October, we ended up disciplining a member of the 104th school. The school graduated in August. So this was a person that had already been graduated and was on the road. We were informed by a citizen, not an employee of ours, that the individual had cheated and the person indicated to us the method and how he had cheated in a course during trooper school. And so that investigation ended up finding out that the individual who contacted us was the actual person that the cadet at the time had sent their name and their password to the online course that he was required to take. That person took the course, took the test, as if that person were our cadet in school. And so subsequent to that investigation, we fired him. The investigation specifically asked him if any other people in the school cheated. During the investigation, he indicated no. But upon his notification of termination, he said, wait a minute, not only I cheated, but a bunch of other folks cheated. And so, the first thing you got to do is say, okay, where's this coming from? And is this misery loves company? And then you have to say to yourself, well, when in doubt, there's no doubt. What you have to do is you have to investigate the allegation that's been made. So we opened up an internal investigation on the 15th of October, and there was an initial interview done with 2 cadets as an inquiry to see if there was a basis to this. And right off the bat, we realized that there was a basis for that. And then over the next months, everybody in the class associated with it was interviewed, and all of them admitted to cheating on the online course in different fashions, either by written notes, by getting information from other cadets over electronic means, other cadets literally assisting folks with taking to their test, using Google to Google answers while they were on the online test. They actually had social media groups set up within the group, not only to assist in that effort, but then when the investigation occurred, for them to get their stories straight, because they can't fire us all. And so that's what the information came out of that. This is a particularly young class. The age is about age 31 down. And so there are a lot of influence that goes into this, and a lot of questions that, kind of point to online training and the use of online training under the honor system. The circumstance, I think, that was the key for them is 2 members of the class who took the course very quickly were respected by the class. They were considered to be very good academic students, and when they took the test, they failed it. And I think that set in some panic, because we had cadets that were on the bubble academically themselves. One in particular essentially said that if I fail this test, it'll be my 3rd academic failure. I'm going to get kicked out of here, so I'm going to do what I have to do. And with that, we made the determination that we needed to sit down not only with us, in a bubble of a decision, bring in post-counsel, bring in the training center, and have them help us review all the things so that the decision maker could make the right decision. And then the decision was made to terminate the individuals. Why was that decision made? If you look at the first course of action that was taken with the initial individual who cheated, he was fired. Not knowing that the other group, the action was taken. That's correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And in a subsequent school that occurred, he was with the same group, sir. He was part of the same group. So it was one of that class at the first investigation is that he had cheated by the use of somebody outside the department. He was fired. And from that, we go to this investigation. While this is going on, we have another class that's in session where 3 cadets identified somebody else who had cheated in class. That person was terminated for cheating. So we have a systematic consistency in our discipline when that occurs to do that. And so we found ourselves with 30 remaining people, and after conferring with Post and conferring with the training center, the decision maker ended up terminating them. They were put on administrative leave last evening. All of them were in Atlanta today, and all of the notifications of termination, because they're on working tests, that occurred by 9 o'clock this morning. That's pretty much a synopsis of it. One of the things that I've asked, because of the elements that have occurred within the investigation, is for post-counsel in writing to come in and essentially do a complete audit of our training group at the training center And then once I worked with Director Ayers, then I called Director Wigging in today to notify him that that would be occurring on his campus, which what is known as a resident training academy. At Chipstick, there are essentially the three main law enforcement agencies, along with corrections, that now and in the past have had their academies located physically at the training center. That was the concept, to bring it all together in one centralized location. And so that notification was also is that part of post-investigation may be dealing with the issue of online testing and exams. I know the director has already moved, along with post, that from this point forward, any exam that is given in an online type training that is specifically tied to post-certification for whatever you're doing, whether it's radar or whatever it is, that test, regardless of the education being given online, the group will have to come to the training center and will have to take a proctored exam. In fact, the training center has already initiated that policy and has already carried out the first proctored exam based upon training online, and then the testing being a proctored exam.
Some of the academic training can go on online, study, prepare for it, but ultimately the testing of that material is going to be done in a physical location. You're going to sit down and proctor test.
Yes, sir. That's not what's occurred in the past. That's what's occurring now. I know my initial reaction, what I don't want it to be, is a knee-jerk, because there's definitely a place for online training. But in a resident and academy where we're already there, you're giving us money to do that. We have physical instructors, physical class time. Why do I need to be relegating that to an online type training? Well, the decision was made by a previous director that he wanted to use that format to free up some class time, because he felt that more time needed to be spent on defensive tactics and on the mechanics of arrest. Everybody has seen the violence that is occurring against police officers, the officer-involved shootings that are occurring. The training academy director at the time felt it was important to free up a couple of days in class to do this. Last week we had two troopers in two different instances, one on the Madison-Athens County line and one here in Atlanta. Both were involved in trooper-involved shootings within 48 hours in 1 week. We on average have a trooper involved in an officer-involved shooting every 3 to 4 months. And so you can understand that concern and why that decision was made, but the unintended consequences of this are such that post rules are very specific that all exams need to be proctored. And that's where a failure occurred on our training staff. That's why the directive has already been given. We're not doing any more online stuff, especially when we have them here. We're paying for their room and their board and their time. Everything that we are going to do is going to be in the classroom. Now, some people may see that as a knee-jerk reaction, but when you tell 30 kids who've made a big mistake that they no longer work for you, there's certain things that you have to move in the direction to try to start correcting the problem.
I don't think the issue is with the online training as much as it's with the testing. So I think that's the appropriate step to make.
Yes, sir.
Proper test. I think that makes sense to me.
Did that cover it, sir?
Yes, sir. That does cover it, and I appreciate you going through that so that we all knew what you were talking about. Going back to each of these offices, where we have vacant positions, it's the same question I've been asking everybody.
Yes, sir.
Is when you're reducing the 2 vacant positions at aviation, how many, that means that those positions will not be funded. How many residual vacant positions do you have in that particular program that are to be funded under this recommended budget?
I've broken it down across the whole agency. We have 149 total vacant funded positions.
So this is, you're going to give me the total agency?
This is DPS, and then I'll break it down
Okay.
for you, sir.
All right, let me work it right.
Sure.
Okay.
In aviation, we have 3, and I'll give you the 3, and then if you'd like me to, I'll give you what we designate as a critical position. The first one is the mechanic that we've talked about the OPB cut in the budget here for savings. The other one is a supervisory position, essentially a corporal's position. All the members of aviation, except for our mechanics, are troopers, and there's a level of supervision there. It's a corporal's position that we don't consider critical, but we do consider a request that we have into OPB for a hire that's pending, and it's under the new policy, and it's specific to maintenance that, this would be a maintenance position that would exceed the $40,000 mark, and so we've made that request. But there are 3 there. That's the one critical. The other is the mechanic and the supervisor.
So 3 critical, sorry, 3 positions.
Only 1 critical, sir.
Two that we've cut,
Yes, sir.
leaving 1 funded that's over the 40,000 that is critical to the maintenance of the,
Yes,
of
sir.
the aircraft.
Yes, sir. For administration, that section of our budget, there are 6. 3 of them we consider critical, 3 we do not. The first is an attorney 4, and in conjunction with that is a position in open records. Both of those we consider critical. The reason is we have, on average, about 40 to 42,000 open records requests every year. And part of what we're doing is trying to apply a business process model and then in-house production of IT to help them use technology to move it along. But the decision's been made because of that volume and because of the intricacies, a lot of the stuff that is dealt with in the open records is to actually put an attorney over that open records unit. So that position in the open records is critical. One that is not critical is a HR person that deals in HR matters and complaints. We feel that's non-critical. One is a facilities manager. This is a person that does maintenance on the buildings. Right now we're in very old buildings, and that maintenance person is critical. And then we have 2 IT help desks within our IT group, and we don't consider those critical at this time. So 6 total funded positions, 3 of them we consider critical, 3 of them we consider non-critical.
Colonel, I got the attorney for the open records, a facilities manager, as those were 2 critical positions. I'm missing 1.
And then 1 open records person, an administrative.
Administrative assistant.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Yeah, and having to deal with open records requests on behalf of other clients myself, I can understand and appreciate, number 1, the wanting to comply with the law and be transparent. But in complying with the law, you also have a duty to protect information from being disseminated that isn't
Yes,
open
sir.
to the public.
Yeah, the biggest time consumer is the redaction of what needs to be done, a lot of those. But what's killing us is kind of the data mining. Lawyers are good people sometimes. And when they
I was
data,
surprised you actually kept the lawyer. When you said that, I said that was critical. I was like, well, there you go.
but we literally have a data mining effort that for us that's occurring in the opens records issue, and it's basically then to advertise defense services because of some of the actions that are taken, and so that tends to be a huge bulk of it.
And then field operations, I think we went through this with me just a minute ago, where you had 52, the funding, there are funded vacant positions.
Yes, sir.
That now total 135.
Yes, sir. We initially had 105, but after the action that we took this morning, there's essentially 135 in field ops. 52 of those positions we consider critical, and those are the trooper cadets for the 109th School that starts a week from Sunday.
How many people do we have in that school?
50. They're going to be 52, sir.
52, okay.
And Mr. Chairman, that could change between now and then. And the reason why I say that, we will make conditional offers this Friday, and we could literally have people not show up. I mean, that happens. Yeah. And so we also have pending medical and psychological issues that occur during that period of time, so that number could actually end up being less. And as you know, over time, we end up having, our goal is to try to get a 75% graduation out of that, and we literally have a dashboard that I can show you what the performance has been over time, but that number decreases, particularly over the next couple of months at Trooper School. But those are the 52 positions that we feel are critical for that school. And then the 34 or 35 dispatcher positions are the open positions that we have in our 9 comm centers throughout the state. It's our version of a 911 center. It doesn't have a 911 function, but it's our dispatch center where our CAD is. And we are continually recruiting for those. What you will see is the attrition rate, particularly for that job, is about 22 to 23% historically. And particularly in the first year of employment, of that 22% attrition, that's where 50% of it occurs.
Why is that? What's happening?
It's a very low paid position. What we're even concerned about now is we agree with it, and it was the statute for the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority, where all communications folks, regardless of where they work, would meet the post standard for post-training. Mm-hmm. And so all of our folks have gone through post-training to get that post-certification. And so because they are paid significantly less than what the county 911 system in, we've hired them, we've given them experience on a CAD system, they're post-certified, and it's very easy for them to transition into a higher paying job. But
what's the current salary starting for those positions, and what would it need to be competitive?
About $26,000 is where it is.
26,000?
Yes, sir. About $26,000. $26,999.83. And for entry level is $24,291.75. So the basic person that we would hire coming in with no experience to train is $24,000. And I live in a rural area, and routinely we see advertisements in our paper for places like Forsyth County, Cumming, Georgia, and 911 operators there are making $35,000 a year. So I mean, there's definitely an aspect of this that we could be setting ourselves up for basically becoming the training mill for that type of thing.
It sounds like you already are. What's the market salary? Do you know what it would need to be to retain them? I'd like to know. I think
I would say the market salary is going to be somewhere in the low 30s, Mr. Chairman, but we'll find out for you.
Yeah. You wanted to know, right? All right. Then there were other critical ones. You had 5 secretaries.
Yes, sir. 5 secretaries. We have 52 post facilities in the state. That's the individual that is there Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, and answers the telephone for the local public. That's our call center. If you live in that rural area, which is the majority of our posts, that's the shell answer man. Whether it's school closing or how the roads or where's the post office, that's who you call. You call a patrol post.
But those are patrol, so they're actually in the field. So you put them in field offices because they're located there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All of our secretaries that are engaged in supporting that post operation, all of those positions are in field ops, and we have five of those.
And you had mentioned one mechanic was important. Was this the same mechanic for aviation, or was this different?
Aviation, that's for a helicopter. This is for Dodge Chargers.
And then you had 12 sworn
12 sworn positions that are vacant in the state. Those are supervisory positions in the state right now. We consider those critical.
So the 35 dispatchers and the 52 at the present time trooper schools for the 109th, and plus the 12 sworn officers are all your sworn individuals out of that vacancy total?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. What about the rest, the remainder? Out of that 135, the remainder of those, are those vacant positions that are still funded? Or is that does it make up the 135?
Well, of the 135, 30 of them are the people that were released today. Of the 105, All of these are funded positions that are vacant, and that's the breakdown. 52, 35, 5, 1, and 12. That's where the 105 figure comes from. And then the 30 that were let go today, that's where the additional to 135.
Are there positions that are vacant and funded in the budget, but not essential, non-critical?
In field ops, other than that mechanic, I mean, that's what we do. We consider our employees essential, critical to the mission of public safety. These are the folks that are on the road, stopping cars. These are the folks that are doing the job to try to reduce accidents and fatalities.
Okay. And then the total number that are frozen positions, what's that total number? I think you told me it was 45 and 55, is that right?
If you look at the dollar figure that was figured, and that is in there, specifically how that was calculated, essentially what occurred, specific people and vacancies were not identified by us, Mr. Chairman. We didn't do that. We gave a very kind of keep it simple approach. And of course, we've gone over the exceptions. But essentially, that is the dollar figure that comes out of the budget, subject to a percentage cut that would get our agency to the goal of an overall 4% cut. And so that ends up being $4,730,069. For that program, it's a 3.79% cut statewide with everything that's added in there. But if you were to look at that, and my previous testimony, I used the word, what would that dollar figure equate to? Right. All right, so if we look at the basic trooper, in other words, the person that is the core of our force, that's a TFC-3, and using aviator's math, which is kind of in my background, you look at that and personal services, that's about $100,000 employee with personal services, and so 100,000 into 4.7 million is essentially 47 positions if you equate it just to the sworn. Now you could spread that over the different, with dispatchers and a different variant, if you actually had that, but that's how that number was derived, pure and simple.
Did you, what I'm trying to understand is, did you have 47 funded trooper vacancies in the previous budget to cut? I'm trying to figure out the difference. So what's the total number of vacancies? I'm trying to figure out this differential. What's the delta? So what's the total number of vacancies? Is that the 135? Is that the total number of vacancies in field operations?
As we see it, yes, sir.
Funded and
yes, sir.
Vacant.
In our review, that's what we see is the total number of funded vacancies across all those different disciplines that are in field ops.
So is what being presented to us, and I understand the calculation that was done, but I'm trying to understand also, you will have enough money in this budget to pay your 52 cadets, is that correct?
As it stands now, without cuts, we would be able to, yes, sir.
And 35 dispatchers?
Hopefully, if we can recruit them and hire them and keep them, yes, sir.
5 secretaries?
Hopefully so, yes, sir.
The mechanic and then the 12 sworn supervisors?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so within this budget, recommended budget, you'll be able to take care of those mission-critical individuals.
For the rest of the year, we believe we can achieve that, and the way we want to achieve that is trying to do savings any way we can on the ROE side.
And on the others, so with that being this, that would be your total. That's 87, that's 87. I get 106, maybe a 105 is what we're talking about, though.
It is, sir.
And then the balance, to come up with the money in order to,
Mr. Chairman, the fact of the matter is, there is no way that I can recruit, train, and put on the road the 30 people that I just lost. There's just no way that I can do that. In the time frame range, in the next 5 months, that is a hole that's essentially funded that I can't use those positions.
But a cadet's salary isn't 100,000 plus fringe and benefits. So
no,
I guess so I'm trying to figure out what we're giving up, what your agency is giving up in terms of personnel or positions or,
They were just terminated from the department today.
but what you're giving up to make the 4.7 million, what are Georgians losing?
Well, they've lost 30 troopers on the roadway today, sir.
But that 30 troopers wouldn't have been, that's not $3 million worth of people.
No, well, actually, it is. It's very close to that. They are, and I'll use some aviator's math to get there. They are troopers that, upon graduation, they go from a cadet salary of about $36,000 to $46,000.
Right.
Right. And then a personal service cost, I use about 1.6, to get close to that. So you're looking at about a $70,000 employee times the 30. So that's $2.1 million. That's about as close as I can get without using a calculator.
No, and that's what I'm getting at. I'm doing the math too in my head, and I'm not coming up with 4.7. So where are we making? What are we losing?
Absolutely.
So as part of the cleanup project that we were given by OPB and that Courtney and I talked about several times, we've started moving positions that were vacant and funded to what we're calling a holding department, and they have now been unfunded. So we currently have 140 positions that are vacant and unfunded. So a lot of those are going to take up those numbers because I've been moving them to unfunded as we are cleaning these up, if that makes any sense.
No, that does make some sense. So then that means that the 105 plus what we thought we had in terms of a trooper school, that is still effectively funded. The 140 is where you're getting the 4.7 million. Is that right?
Yes, sir, but the 140 is not just in field ops. I'm sorry, I didn't break it down by program.
That's okay. I'm with you. So it could be in administration. It could be people that are.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this is on the email that I sent Courtney. It's one of the separate tabs, and she's also got this.
Okay. All right. Good.
Mr. Chairman, some of that funds can be helpful, particularly in what we've talked about before, is when our employees leave, either on a disability or a service retirement. We try to do a very good job of estimating that. Sometimes we get very close. Last year we were very successful in that. Pretty much we hit that very, very close. Thus far this year, in the first 6 months, we've already had 47 retirements. And, with that aspect of it, for instance, in the last month, our ERS annual leave and our required payouts just in the month of December was $706,000. The previous was $386,000. This next month is projected at $482,000, and so a lot of that can end up because that's where we have to take it from, is that program of those additional costs. Now, the truth is yes, we have been given money in the past, and we've been budgeting that accordingly, but we're seeing large employee payouts with some of our folks that are leaving, and at the 6-month mark, I can only guess. Last year we had 62 people that left. The year before we had 49. And the biggest thing that's killing us out of that is the medical retirement aspect of it. That system is broken.
Yeah, you did explain that to me in horrific detail with very strong examples. I think we need to spend some time, and I'm probably going to have to task a member of this committee to sit down with you to talk about what, if any, legal changes can be made in that process to help with that disability issue. Because that's not, I mean, I can't, those incidences you showed me are not right.
No, it's broken. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson that made the comment about if bureaucracy heads in a certain direction, it will make liars out of honest men. And I think we have a circumstance of that. I think it's, pretty darn simple. I know that that's not something that I can control. I'm not using it as an excuse or pointing to somebody else. It's just when I look at it and the associated costs for the agency, we're not retaining people for a full career anymore. They're working 13 years, 18 years, 22 years, and they're walking out with 80+% on a disability that I think is questionable at best, but it's not something that I can control.
I'm sorry, I've been kind of hogging the mic here, guys. Okay. And so much so that Gerald left. Talking about boring your audience, I bored a member of my committee out of here. Let me, Representative Holcomb has some questions, and I have some concluding remarks.
Yeah, it's more a statement, but thank you for your presentation. I fully agree with how you handled that situation. So,
Sir, that's chapter 1. There's more to come.
oh boy. Okay.
All right, well, I don't look forward to chapter 2. This doesn't sound like a good novel but ultimately, preservation of the honor of the office and the badge is important. And so I think making those decisions is right. You have repeatedly said to this committee that it is your desire that we don't recruit and train and put on the road officers that are not of the caliber that you would expect them to be for the state of Georgia. And for that reason, there have been vacancies, and there have been large numbers of vacancies funded in the hope that you would accumulate those officers that you'd be proud of. Colonel, I appreciate this heightened level of detail from your department, and this is helpful to us. I'm sure we're going to have additional questions that will probably filter back through to you.
I've got 2 more to go through, Mr. Chairman, if you got time.
Yeah, let's hit them.
It's very quick. The Motor Carrier Compliance Division, the reduction in funds by eliminating vacant weighmaster positions. If you look specific to that, that ends up being 18 weighmaster positions at $760,000. And then in the same fashion of figuring a goal of 10% of 75% of the ROE plus all the reductions to come up with savings, that's $631,000. And that actually makes the cut to motor carrier about 5.68%. The Office of Public Safety and Officer Support, honestly, the cuts there are based upon, at this point, we haven't fully spooled that office up by the recruitment of folks. And so in peer support, we're still looking for 2 counselors and 2 social workers. And so you look at the period of time that we've had that money, and you look at the reduction for those 2 positions. One of those is because we have a partner in this, and that's the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Both of us have had peer support teams. I don't know whether you know Special Agent in Charge, Wes Horn. Wes is acting as our deputy commissioner to that, or our deputy director to that, and so part of that is his salary, because the director not only said that he would detach him for that effort under our agency, but he would pay for his salary.
Yeah, I'm just not pleased with these cuts at all here. This is a House-initiated Office of Public Safety Support. It was brought, pursuant to your request and your discussions with members of this House who deal in the medical realm, who see people that suffer through traumatic events, and we just talked to Director Ayers about this with Post.
Resiliency.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And this is just not. We are moving in the direction that is contrary to trying to reinforce your men and women when they go through a traumatic event.
Yes, sir.
And keep them not only keep them in the department, but keep them engaged in what it means to be law enforcement. And I don't think that folks realize that how that can affect you, how a shooting incident can affect an individual and affect their ability to perform the duties. They may stay on, but the ability to perform the duties that are required of them, I don't think these cuts reflect that comprehension.
And that's the point that I wanted.
And Scott's telling me, and to keep them alive, I'm not. We're missing I'm missing the biggest part of this.
And that's the point that I wanted to make on
suicide.
that.
That's the suicide of officers that
Yes, sir.
they cannot handle it.
Yes, sir.
Terminate lives, and then you leave families that are that are destroyed further. Not aside from the self-medication that may go
Yes, sir.
on. I mean, you know, we just as a house we took this on as a way of trying to be sympathetic. Some of us empathetic to that
Yes, sir.
situation and trying to move that forward. And so this is. Like I said, I just don't think this is, the comprehension level on this one is not there.
And that's the point that I wanted to make to you here. These are not things that we're, quote, offering up as cuts. These are things that we are offering up as savings because to this point, we haven't.
There are cuts, right? I mean, you're losing, I mean, I know what the director's willing to do with his salary, but you gave 2 positions away.
The point is that in the amended portion of this, we haven't been able to recruit and hire the people. In one of these instances, one of the
You've only had this money for half a year, if that.
The point that I want to make about particularly one of the positions is an administrative assistant that we felt that we didn't need. It wasn't that you know, we necessarily wanted to cut the ability of counselors and peer support folks, but it was an administrative position that we felt that we could give up. So that aspect, along with realizing the savings with an individual for the GBI that the Bureau was covering his salary, that's what has come up with that figure. It's not meant to be a cut. It's meant to look at it and say, you know, we really don't need 2 administrative assistants for that number of group. We only needed to be for 1.
Okay, so we're retaining counselors,
Yes, sir.
peer support counselors. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Our
All right.
our goal is to move to fully implement that savings at $222,000 was specific, and then as you can see there, the reduced funds to reflect delayed start dates has to do with we haven't been able to get them there. So those are the funds that we haven't expended for employees that, you know, we hired in September. We weren't able to hire them in September. You know, we've gone a period of time where we're recruiting and looking. We're having a hard time getting people to pass the background to be employed.
We do that every year. We go back and look at what the hire dates are, and
Yes, sir.
we recoup that money. So that's to be expected. I just didn't. I was getting worked up maybe about nothing, but I was afraid that we were.
Mr. Chairman, I'm right there with you. The Department of Public Safety is the godfather of peer support in this state. Trust me, this is what we want. This is what we want, not just for us. We've been very, very successful in this, and we have a team and a concept now that is realized in the budget that gets that proper support. We echo what you're saying. This is a very important part of what we've, because this is, you know, this is for all public safety. This isn't just for statewide. This is including 911 operators that operate in the county if they have issues.
Well, that was what I meant to ask that about Mr. Ayers, and perhaps it's some discussions you can have with him, is that with the director, I don't think he realized that this is a statewide service and that you had intended it to be beyond just public safety. So maybe that's something to discuss with him.
Yes, sir.
And it may be something, I'm concerned about having, you know, pop-up support systems.
Right.
Unless there's a real need for doing that. I prefer a centralized approach to this.
Yes, sir.
So further discussions with him, because he wants to put that model forward and through post. And I want to make sure that we're doing it, but doing it most efficiently and effectively as possible.
So in
I've
conclusion,
cut you off enough. What else?
well, in conclusion, if you were to go program by program, yes, there are differences. Each program is not exactly 4%, but if you added up the total of the statewide cuts is about 4.075% across the whole division. It's not just 4% for us. We have a little bit here and a little bit there, and that makes up the sum total.
All right. Thank you very much, Colonel. Appreciate your time today, and I will probably be inquiring a little bit more about the trooper school and the effectiveness of these of the actions taken by GIPSTIC, your department as well, and then with Post.
I didn't want to be the cause of those actions, sir.
Understood. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. We'll rally up again for the full budget.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. With that, we're going to stand adjourned. We'll stand adjourned, but we'll send out notifications regarding the second round of meetings. Thank you, Courtney.